and terrorist financing is a threat not only to the integrity of the financial system, but in fact it is a threat to the entire society.
Hello and welcome to the Bankers Masterclass series in association with Deutsche Bank, looking at the effect the EU Funds Transfer Regulation 2015, which comes into effect in June, will have on financial institutions. I'm Joy Macknight, Deputy Editor of The Banker, and I'm joined by Stefan Fruschki, Head of Regulatory Management, Institutional Cash Management at Deutsche Bank. In the final chapter of this Masterclass series, we discuss the benefits that revised FTR 2015 will bring to the financial industry and society as a whole. Thanks so much for joining me, Stefan. So can you tell me a little bit of some of the pressing issues that the European supervisory authorities really need to address in their guidelines?
I think where there's a number of topics or open issues that partially we already touched on. It starts, of course, with the obvious ones like what is a repeated failure? And also in connection with that, what is then the reporting requirements that you have vis-a-vis the local authorities? And of course, when it comes then to the additional steps that you must take, when are what steps necessary or required or mandatory? Then we have the discussion around what is a linked transaction. There's a huge debate around if or if not a name number check is required. We have this problem on when or under what circumstances can you still switch into a payment transaction into a system with technical limitations. Around SEPA direct debits, we actually have quite an issue what and in what process step what requirements would apply. So there's a number of issues that now should be discussed then in the consultancy period. In the consultancy phase, and then can be closed. So,
okay. And do you see this as really a radical transformation, whether that's disruption or a positive effect that the FTR 2015 will have on the industry?
Well, I don't think it's not a radical development. I mean, in the end, FTR is really building on existing things. So it's an evolution, yes, but definitely not a revolution. Will there be disruptions? Well, that really will depend on whether we all have a common understanding of the regulatory requirements. You know, you must see that there's always these two sides of the equation. A payment service provider must determine what it must transmit with a payment transaction. Now that, of course, also determines what you think is acceptable when you receive a payment. And as we discussed, when you think that what you receive is not compliant, you must act. You must challenge that. And that means that in that point of time, if there is different interpretations, there's going to be disruption in the industry. And of course, the same holds then true in your interactions with local regulators. If there's not clear guidance, we will end up again with a scattered landscape, which is also, you know, from that perspective, is not a good thing.
Okay.
So we are really looking forward here for the guidelines.
Okay, but what do you think will actually happen on June 26th this year?
There's not going to be a big disruption or anything like that. So I think on day one, everything was going to be fine. What subsequently will then happen is, of course, these discussions amongst payment service providers when you challenge and then have different opinions on whether or not that is acceptable what you received or what you sent. So this likely may happen also then in interaction with regulators. What is it that they want to be reported on, that they want to see, and how? So this is going to happen, but there's not going to be a big disruption or a big event on day one.
Okay, but will the industry or society as a whole really benefit from FTR?
Well, the FTR 2015 is not a regulation like the Payment Service Directive or the SEPA end date regulation. If you look at the purpose of FTR, which is to create full transparency, to create traceability for the purpose of detecting, preventing, and investigating money laundering and terrorist financing. Money laundering and terrorist financing is a threat not only to the integrity of the financial system, but in fact it is a threat to the entire society. And therefore, FTR clearly is the right thing to do, and which is also a reason why we as an industry really must get it right.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Stefan. This concludes the Bankers Masterclass series in association with Deutsche Bank on the EU Funds Transfer Regulation 2015. Thanks for joining us.